So, as we wrap up this wonderful conversation, is there anything else that you would like our Reset to Reinvent podcast listeners, viewers to get from Amy's, or any other pearls of wisdom that you can be able to share that's on your heart that maybe we haven't already talked about?
I just want everyone to know, and I try to, not only through my podcast, but in my personal life, this all the time. Lead with kindness. Lead your life with how you approach everybody, approach yourself as well. Lead with kindness, and that you're not alone in whatever. And last, but definitely not least, but just know that you are enough. You are enough the way that you are. You are enough the way that you come and the way that you grow. It doesn't matter what other people are thinking or saying. It's that you are enough, just the way.
Today's episode of Reset to Reinvent podcast is brought to you by the Adams Group Agency, developing final expense leaders.
Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 32 of Reset to Reinvent podcast. I am your host, Helen Blocker Adams. So glad to have you join me here today on the very last week of October, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I do hope that you listeners and viewers have watched in the other episodes this month, because we've had some really, really good episodes. Okay, check it out. But we do have a very special guest that's joining us today, and I look forward to chatting with her in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to make sure that you make sure that you subscribe and download this episode, all of our episodes, share with a friend, let folks know, hey, look, Reset to Reinvent is fire. And this particular episode is going to be extra, extra fire. Okay. And also check us out on YouTube. Okay. I've started a YouTube channel. I have had it for a little while, but I have been informed by my mentors that I need to make it more of a priority. So it's a work in progress, but you can see me, you can pull me up on the YouTube channel, and I need your help. Make some comments, share, let me know what you think. Make some comments in there, or whatever I need to do to get some action there. Okay. Y'all help me out. Help a sister out. Okay. Okay. Also, don't forget to email me at resettoreinvent@gmail.com for your free copy. And I hope that our guest got her free copy of the ebook, Top 15 Habits That Will Develop Your Persistence Muscle. Okay, 15 habits. Now, we all know what a habit is. A habit is something that you do and you don't have to think about it. It just becomes a part of you. If you do it over and over and over again, then it becomes a habit. So in this particular ebook that you can get, just send me an email to resettoreinvent@gmail.com. I'll send it to you, and it may just help you out, especially in this political, economic climate that we're in. We need as much persistence muscle as we can get. Okay. Also, let me do this. Last week, I shared with you all several women who have passed away as a result of having breast cancer, and they succumbed to that vicious, horrible disease. And one person I left out last week, and I didn't mean to. Her name is Cassandra Cunningham, and she is the mother of my friend and business partner, Sharnetta Carr. So I want to just give a special honor to our loss of Cassandra Cunningham and the daughter of Sharnetta Carr. And so much love to all the survivors, all of the people the warriors out there like me and my guest that I'm getting ready to introduce you to. Okay. This lady right here, her name is Amy Smart. What a cool name, right? She is from Canada. She's going to share a little bit about herself. And I'm just so, we connected in a Facebook group, the triple negative breast cancer Facebook group. And I think she made a post and I made a comment or vice versa. And we connected. And it's so funny. Amy, welcome to Reset to Reinvent
Thank
podcast.
you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You know what's so funny when you meet people on platforms like that, you're talking, you're communicating, we're doing Facebook messaging, and you really have no idea where people are. You don't know if they're in the same city or in another country. And so I think it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, I asked you when we were talking about Eastern Standard Time, I'm like, wait a minute, where are you? And you're in Canada. So you are my first guest from Canada. And Amy, absolutely. Amy, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you how you came about to even starting a podcast, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, starting a podcast, it's obviously really new for me. I am an introvert by heart. So putting myself out there was a really big deal. Something I've thought about for a really long time, but just never had the courage really to pull the trigger, just because I am so introverted. But when I was diagnosed with cancer, and because I was so young, I really wanted it to be my mission to be able to spread awareness. And so at that time, I had started just a Facebook page, intended just for, to keep my family and my friends updated on my journey. And it honestly spread like wildfire. I had hundreds of followers at that time following my journey. And, it kind of tapered off after I had finished fighting and, was in the clear for all intents and purposes. But I always felt after that draw to continue to spread awareness and, more importantly, to support women that were going through the same type of thing. Because I always felt that, it's great to have that connection and that support of your family and friends, but no one quite understands it the way that a fellow survivor or someone who's walking that path does. So it took me a few years to get here, but I finally decided to start my podcast, Chapter 2, just to help support women, not only through their cancer journey, but, difficult divorces, which I also went through at the same time, other life traumas, even that burnout aspect of trying to balance motherhood and having a career.
You were going through a divorce. Was the that transition of divorce, was that already in play before your diagnosis, or did your husband kind of freak out and was like, man, I can't deal with this?
Yeah, it did start before my diagnosis. So we separated in 2020, just as COVID was also entering the scene. So during 2020, I was battling, dealing with COVID situation, as well as dealing with the breakdown of my marriage. We were still obviously in contact, still very new in that, trying to manage the situation with our. But I did find once I was diagnosed, unfortunately, he couldn't handle that as well as I had wanted him to, and as well as I had hoped. And so he did pull back even further from not only supporting me, but supporting our children as well. So it did kind of deteriorate even further. I wouldn't say necessarily because of my cancer journey, but that was definitely a catalyst as far as the further deterioration.
And so your diagnosis was triple negative breast cancer. And
yes,
that was in what year?
It was in what officially year? 2021, early 21. So I found my lump in 2020, just a few weeks before Christmas actually of 2020. And I was pushed off by my doctors, not my doctor actually, other doctors that were covering in his place, saying, oh, it's not cancer. It's not anything to worry about. It's not a big deal. Just wait a few months to see if it goes away. And with it being Christmas and whatnot, I kind of let it sit on the back burner for a little bit, but realized in, January, it hadn't gone away. The lump hadn't gone away. I was in tremendous amounts of, and so I pushed to see my doctor and to get further tests. And so I was officially diagnosed on March 11th.
Wow. And my diagnosis was April of 2021 of triple negative breast cancer. Isn't that something?
Right.
Wow.
I know quite a
Wow.
few women actually, it's crazy, that have been diagnosed with triple negative in more recent years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the name of your podcast, Chapter 2 podcast with Amy Smart. And I just want to read something for our audience. It says it's a space for women rebuilding after life has turned upside down. And clearly, one thing I have learned about podcasts and any of my mentors, they'll say the more authentic you are, the more that you can talk on whatever it is that your podcast's about in an authentic way is the way to go. It's, people will believe you, and certainly your life was turned upside down. Anybody who's had a diagnosis, but you've had like several things that were just colliding all at the same time. And so at what point did you decide, did you start journaling or blogging? And what in your mind made you start to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely journaled I've always been a journaler my entire life. And I've always been drawn to writing. And I definitely used that as a healing tool as I was going through my journey, sorry. And my writing, I started putting articles out there. I won a poetry contest for Cure magazine out of the US about my cancer journey. And I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't think this was just for me. But then I started having women reach out to me, or friends that all had friends that were going through the same thing. And they would ask me to speak with them and just be there for them and offer support and advice. And, I wouldn't say it was an overnight decision. It was definitely a slow progress of this is where I want to be. And just beyond the cancer too, right? Dealing with COVID, dealing with a divorce, dealing with, this newfound life that I'm thrown into of being a cancer patient, then cancer survivor, and essentially a single mom to two boys. How do I deal with that? Life isn't perfect, and it's messy. And how do you rebuild after all of that? And that's how chapter 2 came to be, because I'm in my 40s and I didn't like the idea of thinking like this was the end of my marriage is over. I've got this diagnosis and that's it. I looked at it as an opportunity to rebuild and to start over. And that's where chapter 2 came from, because it's about, rebuilding and rewriting your next chapter. It doesn't mean your story is over just because you faced these things. It means that you have an opportunity to rebuild your life the way that you want.
And I love there's so many parallels, the name of my podcast, Reset to Reinvent. And it's about, dealing with life challenges and finding way to help people get to another level so that they can thrive in a whole different way. So going to the journaling, and you said you've been journaling, as long as you can remember, how important is journaling, not necessarily for women, but maybe for men as well? But how important is journaling, and what can you share with our audience of what it's done for you and how it can help them in anything that they might be going through?
Yeah, I mean, I think journaling is such a huge thing in self-reflection and understanding your own feelings and where you're at with something. But I think that the most important thing to remember when you is that journaling doesn't have to be a one size fits all type deal. A lot of people look at journaling and, well, I have to fill out pages and pages every single time. And it doesn't have to be. You can start with as simple as one sentence of, I feel sad, I feel overwhelmed, and just recognizing and acknowledging that feeling within yourself is a beautiful start. And it's the first step in being able to walk that healing journey with whatever you're going.
And that's the really good suggestion, especially the over, because a lot of people don't like to write, and then a lot of people don't like to read. So both of those kind of go hand in hand. So the idea of journaling can feel like it's a job. That self-reflection that you talked about, that is so cool. Doesn't that self-reflection, Amy, make you, it's almost like a relief, almost like, oh, I'm so glad that I got that off my chest. I feel better now.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much to be said about just getting it out there, right? Naming what it is that's bothering you, or that's, weighing you down, or even that's got you excited, but you don't know how to express it. Just putting a name to it, there's no right or wrong. And, I think the other thing that people have to remember with journaling is that it doesn't have to be pen to paper. It can be as simple as opening your notes app on your phone and doing a voice recording of it too. Journaling can take so many different forms on whatever best suits you. The important thing is just taking that step to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, going back to your description, chapter 2 podcast, and for you guys, chapter 2, reclaim, rebuild, and rewrite. What I want you to do right now, I want you to right now just go find her. Yes, you're watching this podcast, but go ahead and put this on minimize, keep listening, and find chapter 2 podcast with Amy Smart. Just Google it and you'll be able to find it in the any so you're on pretty much all of the major podcast platforms, Amy?
Yeah. Yep, I am. So you can go to rss.com and that can lead you to any of the others, but you can find me on Apple, you can find me on Spotify. I am on YouTube, although I don't put videos up there. It's just simply the recordings of it as well.
And I did listen to, I'm trying to think, it was, oh my goodness. And I call myself making a note of the name of it that I listened to just the other night. And your voice is so calming and it just makes you feel good. And so that's real. That's important when it comes to having to feel better about ourselves, because going on in your description, whether you walk through breast cancer, a broken marriage, burnout, or any life transitions, you'll find stories here that remind you that you are not alone and that this is not the end of your story. And that's what chapter 2 is all about, is that it's not the end of your story. So how did you come up with that? Did it, in the middle of the night? Because like my book that I wrote, Unusual Determination, I'll tell you right now that it was during my journey. I would get notes and emails and messages and prayers from friends and family members. And one of my mother's friends, who's recently passed away, by the way, he uh, um, uh, sent a letter, and then he had it on an index card. And he wrote on the index card, how proud he is of me. And then he says, you're going to be fine because you have such unusual determination. Now, he was tying it in with some other things that I've gone through, in terms of politics and all of that. And when I saw that, Amy, I highlighted that. Now, that was like at the very early stages. I had no idea that I was going to be writing a book. Okay. I was journaling my experience. But when I saw those 2 words, I said, that's it. I said, that's going to be the name of my book. I'm going to write a book, and that's going to be the title. And so where did chapter 2 podcast, where did chapter 2 come from? And you've written a book too, haven't you?
No, I haven't written a book. I would love to. I've
Put
thought
it in
about
the
it a lot.
atmosphere.
Yeah. It that's honestly, I started writing. I use the term writing a book loosely because I was writing it, but it was more for myself, just documenting my story. And I was brainstorming ideas of what I wanted to call the podcast, when I was still loosely thinking about it. And I knew that I wanted to tie it into writing somehow, not only for myself, but just because I believe so strongly that writing is such a beautiful form of self-expression, whether it ties into the journaling, self-reflection, or writing down just, your gratitude every day, that sort of thing. And I just started thinking about it and brainstorming, well, how can I tie that into writing? And how can I tie it into believing that your story doesn't end and that your life isn't over and that there's so much more opportunities? And I was reading something, it was just passing by probably on Facebook articles kind of thing, just talking about your next chapter and what you plan on doing. And I think it was actually to do more with leadership rather than anything else. So, and leadership in business, just based on what I do professionally. And it just kind of clicked. I was like, your next chapter, your chapter 2. Chapter 2 is just the 2 part of it. It was honestly just a random number that I picked. Why not chapter 2 versus, chapter 20? I guess it could be the same thing, just depending on where you are in your life. For me, I guess chapter 2 really resonates because the first part of my life was very focused. I thought I was in the marriage that I wanted to. I could clearly see my future. I was on the path that I had designed for myself, that I had dreamt. And because all of those things, collided at once with the deterioration and breast cancer and all of that, I was left to strongly it. And so for me, it is my second act and it is chapter 2 of my life. So, but people could have chapter 3s, chapter 20s, wherever you are. I think just realizing that it's never too late to start over. You're not starting at the beginning, you're starting from
Experience. I like that. So for someone that's just struggling, that's just not able to push past whatever it is that they're dealing with, and obviously that move to the next chapter is not something that just happens just like that, and everything is just fine. There's still a process, you're still going through the journey. But what would you say to someone who just can't put can't grasp the idea of even getting to chapter 2?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that my last episode actually, that I just published this week, talked about your future and what that looks like. And the biggest takeaway that I wanted people to understand from that is that you don't have to have a clear picture of what that new future looks like. It can be very blurry. Um, the important thing is just taking one step forward, whatever that happens to be in that moment. It doesn't even have to be big. It can be acknowledging how you feel. Some days it can be getting up in the morning and taking a shower, right? Everybody is at a different place. I think realizing that healing is not linear. It is a big jumbled mess. And that's okay. And I think giving yourself grace and understanding and realizing that it doesn't always have to appear that it's moving forward in order for you to actually.
I think that was the episode that I listened to that I couldn't remember. Yeah, because I remember that you used the term that our healing is not linear. And when we think of linear, it's a straight path, right? And we know exactly where we're going, the next step, and the next step is all clear. It's not cloudy. But you're saying no, 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 because if we do put in our minds, do you agree? This is a question. So if we do put in our minds that uh, healing is linear, that can be detrimental or put too much pressure on us as mere human mortals. Wouldn't you agree?
Exactly. I think that too often that's how we view it as a society, right? That anything that you go on, whether it's a healing journey or building your career or, you know, breast cancer and dealing with that it's going to be a straight, clear path. And you're setting yourself up for failure if that's the way that you view it. Not to say that it doesn't happen that way, because I know that there are often times when it does, but that's not common. And so I think accepting early on that that's probably not the way that it's going to be, that you're going to encounter roadblocks, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're going to have days where you don't want to get out of bed. And that's okay. And steps don't always have to be huge and monumental, and they don't even have to be recognized by anybody else. They can be small, recognized by yourself, and just the quiet steps forward. They don't have to be the loud ones. And in fact, in my experience, those quiet steps are oftentimes where I've done the most healing. You know, it's in my cancer journey, for example. Yes, I had the steps of, I went through chemo. I knew I had to do this many rounds of chemo. I knew that I had to have surgery. And I knew all those things to get me to the end of no cancer. But that's not where my healing happened. My healing happened in recognizing that I was there, in recognizing that I had the fear of my kids growing up without their mom, and accepting that and acknowledging that and understanding that that is true and that is my reality, and that that's okay to feel those ways. That's what got me through those moments. That's what pushed me forward to keep wanting to fight. That's what really got me through to the end.
And speaking of your children, you have two boys. Is that correct? And their ages are
They're 9 and 13, almost 14. So
okay. Oh yeah, I bet he likes saying almost 14, doesn't he?
yeah,
So
and
so
he's taller than me and everything. So
wow, wow. Now you live in Canada. Tell us about that. Are you from Canada? Tell us about that. I mean, you're my first guest from Canada, and this is just so cool. Wow.
yeah. Well, we're headed into winter. So I live in central to western Canada. So it gets pretty chilly here in the winter. And
Okay, what do you mean by chilly?
I mean, our cold days are minus, 40, 45 Celsius. So I don't know what that is to convert that to Fahrenheit, but it gets pretty cold around here. So right now we're not quite there. We've still got sunshine and no snow, but we're definitely headed down that.
So you've been in Canada all your life,
Yeah,
and what do
born and raised.
you mentioned your career when we were talking offline. Tell us about your career and how supportive were your colleagues during your journey.
Yeah, I wasn't working when I was diagnosed. I had already left my job. I was in municipal government, and then decided to leave that position when I had my second child, with the intention of always going back to work, after he went to school. But then I ended up getting diagnosed. So other than, I was doing day home work, so I was babysitting and stuff for friends and whatnot at the time, but I wasn't working. It delayed going back, which then caused some, financial hardships. I'm very thankful that in Canada, our healthcare is covered. So I didn't have to pay out of pocket for, my cancer treatments or anything like that, which I will be forever grateful for. But there's still financial hardships that came with that, of just being able to support myself and my boys on the day to day. So, but so I didn't have my colleagues or anything like that supporting, like around to support, but I did have tremendous support by friends and family. And then even now, once I was healed, I definitely had some concern entering back into the workforce of what that looked like and how do I explain it to a new employer that I went through this and that there's potential there, because as you know, with triple negative, our risk of recurrence is. And so how
Yes.
do I even address that with an employer going forward, that this is a potential thing, that I need time off every few months to go get checks, that I have all of this stuff because, yeah, I'm a survivor. I beat cancer, but it never fully leaves you. It never leaves the back of your mind. You're never actually over
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
So I did approach it very cautiously with them, but I was very upfront and honest. And my employers now, I've been with them for 3.5 years, and they are amazing and they're so supportive of me and my journey. And my boys as well. They've embraced us all like family. And they do everything. Anytime I have a scare or I have just the worries of what my future looks like, they do everything possible to be able to support that and support us in
One of the things, Amy, that I've noticed, and I don't know if you have on the triple negative breast cancer Facebook group, I hear some horror stories. I read some horror stories of women who lacked support, who had doctors that they really didn't trust what they said, and they questioned, and they're just, and that was totally opposite for me. I had like the best three oncologist doctors and the best support. Have you seen that? Have you read any of those horror stories? And isn't that sad?
Definitely. And I don't think, I mean, because I know that the majority of those members, I think, are from the US, but I can say that the same thing happens here in Canada. Our healthcare system is definitely, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough supports, and they're very outdated, I would say, as far as treatments and stuff. So if you aren't willing to walk the walk of the way that they want you to, there is a lot of pushback that way. I was quite fortunate once I got into the system and I got my oncologist, and my entire team, and even my family doctor. They're so supportive. But getting to that point, I found it quite a struggle. I was told, because I was 38 when I found my lump, 39 when I was diagnosed, I had a lot of pushback saying, it's not cancer, you're fine, you're too young to have cancer, you have no health risks to have cancer. And so getting that, I had to strongly advocate for myself. I was told that, with the size of my tumor, if I had left it and not pushed, I probably would have been dead within the year. So I learned that I had to advocate strongly for myself and push. And even after I was diagnosed, they said, well, it's probably not triple negative because that's super rare. And turns out it was triple negative. And then, I constantly got and of people saying, well, it's not going to be this because of, right? And it turns out I'm just an anomaly. Because I don't have the BRCA gene. I've got a gene mutation of a different one, but I don't have the BRCA gene. I don't have the family history. I live a healthy lifestyle. I exercise, eat healthy. I don't drink. I don't smoke. All of that stuff. So I wasn't a prime candidate at all for breast cancer. But I think that's part of why I push so hard and I'm so vocal and so open about my journey, because it can happen, right? It can happen to young women, young men. Just because you believe that you are living a healthy lifestyle doesn't make you superhuman, and it doesn't make you completely immune to getting these. So you know your body best. I would say that. And if you feel like something is wrong,
That's some very good advice. Push to get checked as well as advocate for yourself. To be in a position where you definitely want to apologize for this, so that you definitely want to be in a situation where you don't want, you want to be heard. Okay, and in order for you to be heard, I know early on you said that you're more of an introvert, but you're talking about your life, your body, your children. Yeah, y'all are going to listen to me, you know,
exactly.
and the fact that you were an anomaly. I know I said that all wrong. I'm horrible with long, big words and saying, but the fact that you fought for yourself, um, I can see how your podcast, chapter two podcast with Amy Smart, I can see how this can be your voice is honest, is authentic, and people believe you. You know, people believe you, and I think that whole message about being your own voice and being a voice and not being afraid to fight for yourself goes across the board, whether it's breast cancer, whether it's fighting for a raise in your job or
Mhm.
anything. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. We are in control of ourselves. Yes, I understand we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we react to those circumstances. Um, whether it's how we were raised or the relationships that we're in, the jobs that we're in, we are in control, and we have to take that control and be willing to fight for ourselves to create the life that we want, whether that's for ourselves, for our families, for our legacy that we leave behind.
Absolutely. So you have some goodies, if you will, uh, uh, materials, items that people can be able to get from you, from from your website. So tell us where people can get some goodies from you to be able to help them in their journey for their chapter two.
Yeah, so you can check out my website. I just launched it this week, which I'm super excited about. But it's chapter2podcast.com. And if you sign up for my mailing list, you'll get a self-reflection guide. It's just a mini guide, a one page, with some questions on there just to start your journey, start your healing journey, and really reflect on where you are and where you want to go. Because I think that's important. Even though I said your future might look blurry, and it absolutely might, but I think being able to even begin picturing of what that future might look like is huge, and it'll push you forward. So I would love it if people could do that. And signing up for the newsletter, I plan on releasing newsletters weekly, as well as more free materials. They can join the podcast and check it out there. They can join my Instagram chapter 2 as well. And I hope that it just grows. And, if I can, I always say that if I can just help one woman or one person feel.
Absolutely. Now, earlier I asked you, had you written a book? And you said, no, not yet. And I said, we're going to put it in the atmosphere. I'm going to put this in the atmosphere. I love healing is not linear. So I'm just going to put it out there. I don't know if that's a workbook or a book or a name of a journal, but that's a real special saying. Healing is not linear. So I just want to just put it in the atmosphere from Augusta, Georgia, all the way to Canada.
Absolutely. I will
So
dedicate that book to
Amy,
you once I get it written.
oh,
So,
thank you. Thank you. So, as we wrap up this wonderful conversation, is there anything else that you would like our Reset to Reinvent podcast listeners, viewers, to get from Amy's, or any other pearls of wisdom that you can be able to share that's on your heart that maybe we haven't already talked about?
I think I just want everyone to know, and I try to, not only through my podcast, but in my personal life, and I tell my kids this all the time, lead with kindness. Lead your life with kindness. How you approach everybody, how you approach yourself as well. Just lead with kindness. And that you're not alone in whatever you're going through, big or small. And last but definitely not least, but just know that you are enough. You are enough the way that you are. You are enough the way that you will become and the way that you grow. It doesn't matter what other people are thinking or saying. It's that you are enough, just the way.
Amy, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This has been a joy, and is what a neat way for us to end the month of October. We're in this episode will be out on the last Monday of October. which is the last week of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so you have allowed me to wrap up this month in a really special way. And I really appreciate your time and the opportunity to be able to share. And once again, tell us the name of your podcast and tell us the name of your brand new website.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity and being patient with me, as this is my first interview. So I appreciate you being kind and, allowing me to just talk and speak freely about it. So please check out chapter2podcast.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. You can find a link to my podcast there, as a link to the Instagram community. And there's so much more to come, and I can't wait to build even further off of it and just make it amazing. And invite so many women and men. I know it's geared towards women, but men are more than welcome to join as well, because they aren't alone in this either, and they need the supports too. So
all right, thank you again, Amy. And for a first time, she was magnificent. You would have never known that this was her first interview, and I just feel so special, so extra special. So once again, I want to thank you for watching and listening to episode 32 of a Reset to Reinvent podcast. I am your host, Helen Blocker Adams. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you download, make sure that you like, and make sure that you share, and also make sure that you go back and listen to the other episodes in this month of October. Okay. For the month of November, we've got some fun things planned. Looking forward to that. You all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. And once again, Amy, thank you so much for joining us. And those of you listening and watching Reset to Reinvent, yes, because I am so glad that you have joined us, because you deserve to be inspired. It's October, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Yes, pink is in the air, folks. This month magnifies the important message for women to get a mammogram. Early detection saved my life. I am convinced God kept me here to encourage and bless women who have been diagnosed and are pressing through. My journey is in my book, Unusual Determination. I promise it will bless you. Order your autograph copy today. Email me at resettoreinvent@gmail.com. That's resettoreinvent@gmail.com. Or DM me on any of my social media platforms to order your copy, your autograph copy of Unusual Determination.